The value of understanding where you are going cannot be overstated. And so that's what I'm going to talk about in today's video. My name is Seth. I'm a full-time fantasy author, and I enjoy making YouTube videos, so that's why you're getting a YouTube video. Have you ever wanted to go somewhere new, but you didn't have any idea how to get there? And then when you got into the general vicinity, you realized that you were lost, and none of the signs looked familiar, none of the streets looked familiar, all of the buildings looked foreign, people are looking at you weird because you're like standing there like an idiot, staring into space, just trying to figure out where you are. And if you've never been to the place you're trying to go, it makes sense that you would be like that you would just not have a great idea of where you were supposed to be. In that situation, you're likely to look at a map or ask a stranger, or even more likely, ask Google where it is that you should be. You know, that moment of being lost, of not having the frame of reference, knowing where it is you should be in that moment, is often a picture of our lives. It can be frustrating and bewildering, and sometimes we feel like an idiot just standing there staring into space, thinking to ourselves, I know generally where I want to go, but I have no idea how to get there. And even though I might have gotten some directions, none of this makes sense because maybe the street signs have changed, or maybe a building has been moved or torn down, or maybe something is different now. And I don't know where I'm supposed to go. That sort of feeling can build up over time as well, as we feel like we're wandering through life, just unable to figure out what our end destination is even supposed to be. Now, let's contrast this with the opposite. Is there anywhere that you go on a daily or weekly basis, over and over and over again? Maybe that's work, or maybe that's a friend's house, or maybe that's just to the mailbox. But we all have these places that we could get to even if we had our eyes closed. We know so incredibly well that we know all of the little intricacies. I remember there was a period of my life where I had to drive about 45 minutes to work, and I got it down to a science. I knew when the lights would turn. I knew how fast I had to be going in certain stretches of road to beat the school buses. I just understood the route perfectly. So much so that my 45-minute commute eventually got chopped to 40 minutes and then to 35 because I just understood exactly how to get where I wanted to go. And I'm sure that you have something like that too, a place that you could give somebody else directions to perfectly, a place that you could get to even while you're busy doing something else. Your feet just naturally know the path. Unfortunately, most of us float through life in that first state. We don't have clarity on where we're trying to go. We don't understand what it is we're trying to do. And even when we know the general location of what we're trying to achieve, or the general place we're trying to end up, we get distracted by things on the way and we find ourselves lost. And even when we think we've gotten there, a lot of times we look around and say to ourselves, oh man, this is not actually where I wanted to be. This is not the place that I thought it was. And sometimes, though we know the general location, we find that we can't even get directions because, again, we don't know the specific address of the place we're trying to go. Imagine if one of your friends told you to meet him at a restaurant but didn't tell you the name of the restaurant or the address and just said, oh, it's a Mexican restaurant in this city. That would be a nightmare to try to find. But we treat life this way. We think to ourselves, oh, I think I'd like to go to a Mexican restaurant, but we never actually specify which Mexican restaurant. We never actually determine the location of it. And so no matter how many people we ask, we are going to waste time as we're getting there. I think I'm stretching this analogy a little bit far, but bear with me. On the flip side, when we know exactly where we want to go, it becomes incredibly easy to get there. Yeah, there might be some hesitation along the way. You know, is it this doorway or that doorway? Do I take this turn or do I go one more light and take the next turn? There might be some bumps along the way. Maybe you run into a traffic jam. Maybe something happens. But eventually you're going to get there. And not just eventually, you're actually going to get there much faster than if you just had a general sense of what the place was. See, knowing where you want to go specifically allows you to ask for the correct information. It allows you to ask for what you actually need in order to be able to get there. You can ask for specific instruction. It also helps us avoid wasting time with distractions. Because we have a specific destination, We don't waste our time looking off into the distance and wondering, is the place I'm trying to go over there? Or is it over there? I don't know. But maybe you just don't even know where it is you want to be. Maybe you know that you want to eat some food, but you don't know what kind of restaurant. Maybe you don't even know that you want to eat the food. So if you're asking yourself right now, Seth, how do I even determine where I want to go in life? I've got a suggestion for you. This is fairly simple, but it's not necessarily easy. The suggestion is this: spend some time alone with your thoughts, with a pad of paper and a pencil. Sit down and write out the kinds of things that you want to have in your life. Think about the places that you might like to end up, and try to be as specific as possible. A lot of people who talk about doing this kind of visualization tell you to really focus on the senses, what you'll experience when you're in that place. What things look like, what things smell like, what you're going to hear, textures that you're going to feel, the things that you're going to taste. What will that experience be? But if that's too esoteric, if that's too far of a stretch, then I want you to do something else. I want you to look around your life, and I want you to pick the person who has the best character that you know. Not who has the coolest stuff, but who has the best character. Because stuff can come to us randomly, but character is forever. And so once you've identified the person in your life who has the best character, I want you to write down a profile of their life. What do they have? But more importantly, what do they do? What sorts of character traits do they exhibit that attracts you to them? And once you have that list, you have a list of destinations. Simply pick one of those pieces of character, one of those traits that you admire in that person, and start getting the specific information you need in order to achieve that character trait in your own life. And you can do this for any trait. So for example, if there's somebody in your life who is courageous, write that down and then ask yourself, how can I be courageous like them? How do I mirror what they're doing? And then go find a book on it. Learn what people have said about courage, what it is, how to achieve it. And then go to that person who you admire and say, hey, I have noticed that you are courageous. Can you talk to me about how you live out courage in your life?